Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the show. We're back. No special episodes of SportsWrap. I am here in the flesh, the one and only Jason Page. It's good to have you all with us. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes, because if it's a Wednesday, we've got Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk and NBCSports.com in the NBA Weekly. We've got David Aardsma as SportsWrap goes inside baseball, the former big league reliever and closer. We'll get into it with him because there are so many performances worthy of talking about right now when it comes to pitching in Major League Baseball. So I know he'll have a lot to say about that. There is news from the NFL. It is not good news if you're a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, as one troubled player continues to find ways to get into trouble. We'll get into that. And I think we know why NFL teams still aren't hiring Brian Flores. We'll get to that and talk a little bit about the NHL's Western Conference Finals with the Golden Knights and Avalanche getting things kicked off, ready to get things kicked off in that series. But we start things out, as we always do, on this Wednesday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story is all about the NBA, because all the talk about blowouts in Game 7s and blowouts in the playoff, it feels like all that stuff is a thing of the past already, because you've had 2 Game 1s in the Western Conference Finals and then last night in the Eastern Conference Finals that had everybody talking. The Knicks come back from 22 down with about 7.5 minutes to play against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who may have pulled the all-time choke job of choke jobs. And I know the choke word is lazy. The choke word sometimes does not capture everything that happens in a given moment. Sometimes it's one moment. This was a choke that played out over 12 minutes of actual game time, of actual minutes of a game. With about 7.5 minutes left, the Knicks down 22, and then Jalen Brunson goes crazy. James Harden gets victimized. He's on a poster somewhere, unfortunately. And the Knicks rally, blow out the Cavaliers in overtime, win by 9, wind up covering the spread when guys like Darren Ravel were out there going, oh, the Knicks, minus 7.5, the casinos are making tons of money. Not so fast, Lee Harvey. Knicks wind up winning. I was watching it on an airplane because, as you know, we were off these last few days. I was traveling back on a JetBlue flight last night. And so I was watching the game on the tarmac at JFK and then flying out to the West Coast, watching the highlights and reaction to it. And it's so easy to sit there and say, the choke! James Harden did this. James Harden is one guy. You've got to talk about what happened in the strategy of Kenny Atkinson. You got to talk about the guys also around James Harden. This is not on one guy. I know it's popular and it's easy to pile on James Harden. And I've been the first one to talk about his lack of postseason success. And why we all chuckled when James Harden was traded to Cleveland. Because you all know how the story ends, whether it would be in the first round, the conference semis, or in the conference finals. You know how this story ends when it's James Harden in a postseason series. You know how it ends. It's just, how do we get there? It's just filling in the gaps, filling in the details. And last night it was Harden getting victimized on the defensive end. But it's Kenny Atkinson not using his timeouts. It's Kenny Atkinson being afraid of taking James Harden off the court, because if you do, you risk losing him here. And anybody who's watched James Harden over his career knows James Harden, when this goes, forget the physical, forget he can't play defense. If you lose him mentally, forget it. None of the rest matters. And that's the reason that nobody wants to say Kenny Atkinson won't say. They're not taking James Harden out of that game, despite the fact that he's getting abused by Jalen Brunson, because once you lose him here, he's done for the series. So Atkinson says, I'll bite the bullet, I'll take the abuse, because it means we could have him hopefully doing some things for us in the rest of the series. So the Knicks take game one. They're going to win that series. I think it's probably a 5-game series at this point. That was the Cavaliers' best chance to win last night. I talked about it. I was on a New York local Fox affiliate in New York City yesterday, and I said game one was going to be the Cavs' best chance. Knicks on the long layoff. Cavaliers kind of fresh in terms of still being in a rhythm. That was their chance last night, and they blew it. Big story number one. Big story number two, what took place the other night, and we'll see what takes place on Wednesday night between the Spurs and the Thunder. And I don't know if I hear enough people saying this. Let's be clear about something. This is a must-win for the world champions. Game 2 is a must-win. Because I know everybody thinks that, well, the Spurs are too young, you don't know what you don't know, all of that. Fun. Have at it. I think by this point, we should be past the argument of, are they mature enough? They're in the conference finals, for crying out loud. And they just won game one on the road against a team that was 8-0 in the playoffs. Okay? So I'm tired of that argument. I think it's time to flip the discussion. They've won 5 out of 6 games against the Thunder this year. They're 5-1 against them. That's not a small sample size. That's not 1 or 2 games. That's 6 that they've beaten them now. And they're not intimidated going on the road into one of the loudest venues in the NBA in Oklahoma City. Let's call this what it is. Let's call this what it is in game 2. It is a must-win. If the Thunder lose tonight, it's over. All the talk of dynasty and all the things this franchise could do with this group, they're going to be there every year. They're going to be in the mix every year. They lose tonight, this series is done. It's a wrap. They're not winning 4 out of the next 5 games against this Spurs team. So let's call it what it is tonight. Game 2 for the Oklahoma City Thunder at home. It's a must-win. Kurt Helin will be here from Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com when we come back on this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. Great to have you back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. I've had my say in the big story. Wednesdays is all about the NBA Weekly. That means this guy's here. The one and only Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. He is the pro behind Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. There it is. I just wanted to get a smile out of you.
Yeah, that one made me chuckle, so.
There we go. How did the Cavaliers blow a 22-point lead with about 7.5 minutes to go against the Knicks on Tuesday night, Kurt Helin?
As a Knicks fan, aren't you supposed to say aren't we supposed to spend the first part praising Jalen Brunson?
Nope. Nope.
And we should give the Knicks credit for not rolling over and all that and sticking with it. But bluntly, the Knicks started going at James Harden, just going at him. And I get that because they should have probably been doing it earlier. But the lack of adjustment for too long, not calling a timeout during that 18, until it was an 18-1 run in a 5-point game, not by Kenny Atkinson. And with that, not adjusting the defense in there, just letting him go. Way too soft of switches. They just let him. They just let them have that switch every time down or lined up. And Atkinson after the game was like, I couldn't take him out. He's been one of our best defenders in the playoffs. You got to figure something out because now game 2 is easy. The adjustments are on you, and you've got to get him out of Brunson's way somehow, or maybe start attacking Brunson more in the pick and roll. But I thought their execution down the stretch, particularly defensively, was just horrible.
You texted me and said, well, maybe you want to take Harden out of the game. You had Mike Brown taking Josh Hart out because he was struggling.
Right.
My answer to you is, and I don't care what Kenny Atkinson says after the game, you take Harden out in that spot, you risk losing him mentally the rest of the series. That's my perspective on it. Because we've seen what happens when he checks out. And he has had a propensity in his career for checking out in big spots mentally. I think that is as much a component of him not being taken out of that game, Kurt.
I think you've got a point there. Like, this is a political thing. You traded for him. You traded for him to make these plays. And by the way, he did some of what you paid for. The Cavaliers, when they were up 22, they did a good job of, like, when two were on the ball, they moved the ball. They killed you with that short roll. Mm-hmm. You double Harden, the Knicks double Harden or double Mitchell. They found Jarrett Allen usually, but somebody on that short roll, he moved the ball. They were knocking down their open threes. It changed when they just started trying to go too much isolation down the stretch rather than kind of sticking with what had worked and moving the ball. And the Knicks defended a little better and got out there, but they just missed shots and didn't move the ball well at the end and just fell back in the worst of habits. And the Knicks were able to defend that. While at the same time, I get what you're saying, but at some point, man, in the playoffs, like you said, Mike Brown did it right.
He did.
When Hart was out there, they could put a center on him. They put Mobley, whomever on him, and that let them protect their paint and made life difficult for anybody driving. Getting him out, opening up the floor was one of the big things that started that run.
Talk about Jalen Brunson. Now we'll get to Brunson. Yeah. We can talk about how the Cavaliers blew it and all that. There aren't a lot of guys in this league, and I was trying to think last night, the number of guys that are capable of taking games over the way that he did last night. And now we've seen him do it multiple times in the postseason, so it's no fluke that he's done something like this, let alone guys his size that are able to take over games the way he does. The list shrinks to almost nobody.
Yeah, no, that's actually part of what's so impressive is his ability to get to his spots and hits. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has done it a million times, but Shai's also 6'4", 6'3". Like he's taller. He gets the shot up. Luka's done it. We've seen other greats do it. But all those guys are 6'8", 6'9", get to their spots. Heck, there was a time when James Harden could do it. But again, James is 6'6" with a step back. Luka's 6'8" with a step back. And they can kind of just create their space whenever they want. LeBron used to be able to do it. LeBron is a 6'9" bowling ball of a human being who can get to his spots. Kawhi can do it. And he's a guy who's just, again, 6'7", 6'8", whatever he officially is, gets to
massive hands.
Gets to his spot. Yeah, you can't stop him. Brunson is physically strong and uses that, but his ability to hit challenging shots over taller guys is otherworldly.
If the Cavaliers come up short, we had this conversation, you and I, about Mike Brown. And you were like, well, if they don't get out of if the Knicks don't make it to the NBA Finals, Mike Brown's, you could see him getting let go. That kind of loss last night. If this thing goes the direction I think most of us think it's going to go, which is the Knicks winning this series in however many games you want to say. You think 6, I think it might be a 5-game series now. And not even a gentleman's sweep. I just wouldn't be shocked if the Knicks, jump out to a 2-1, 3-1 series lead, wind up winning in 5. With the name Jason Kidd being out there, and we'll get to that later, and other guys that are out there, is Atkinson at risk if they don't get across the finish line with this group?
Yes, absolutely. And it is simply that factor. This is you not only was it a win now team going into the season, but then you traded Darius Garland for James Harden. You got older, considerably older. You shortened the window, and Harden brings some things you can use, but last night was kind of the perfect James Harden game in that way, wasn't it? Like you could see his passing and some of the things he brings to the table, and he is, frankly, a more physical defender than Darius Garland was. But what you give up is that. Like, right? Like there are things you can there's weaknesses that you can target. He had a horrible game 7. It just didn't show because they beat the Pistons so badly. You're going to get those moments. And if you're all in and you've bet on all the players, and by the way, you got to keep Donovan Mitchell happy because he's coming up for a new contract and you've got to re-sign him. If you're going to do all that, you might need to sell him on a new coach, whether that's Kidd or somebody else. You might have to sell them that we needed to make this change to put us, over the top, because at this point, they're not making a whole lot more player changes. They are kind of locked into this roster. They're either blowing it up, which they're not going to probably do at this point because they want to keep Donovan, or they got to make some kind of change.
All right. I want to talk to you about the Jason Kidd stuff. Oh, there's another conference final, by the way, which also was an overtime game, double in this case, between the Spurs and the Thunder in a game 2 in that series coming up that we'll talk about as well, and the Jason Kidd stuff to get into as we continue. Kurt Helin hangs out with us every Wednesday on the show. It's the NBA Weekly, easy for me to say. My tongue is still back on the East Coast. We got more to do with him. Don't go anywhere on this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap. Welcome back. It's the NBA Weekly every Wednesday here on Sports Wrap with the one and only Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Hangs out with us. All right, Mr. Helin. A lot to jam in here, so let me get into it. Western Conference Finals, performance of a lifetime from Wemby in the double overtime win, hitting logo threes like he's Stephen Curry, and you know how I feel about him shooting from the outside. I saw him pull up for that three. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh my God, what a shot! Was I said, oh no, yes, oh my goodness. Was what we saw there from Wemby. On the same night that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets his MVP award, I know he was political about his answer.
Was, but you know,
there was some joy in that, and frankly, let's be honest here, SGA has not played great in this postseason, Kurt.
He has struggled relatively to himself. To be fair, the last 2 series, because the Lakers had no choice.
Honed in on him.
To use an obscure Civil War reference, because I'm an older white guy, they had to go Robert E. Lee here and try the crazy stuff because they didn't have the manpower to just match up. So they threw 2 at him and dared anyone else to beat them. And the Spurs took from that, hey, that kind of worked. We can get the ball out of his hands. What the Spurs have is other defenders everywhere. Like, unlike the Lakers, look, this is a defensive series. I think what got overlooked in game 1, the Spurs' offensive rating of 108 in game 1 would be the worst in the league last year and 12 points below their regular season average. Their points are going to be hard to come by. That was an elite defensive game, but the Spurs can take the ball out of SGA's hands and have other guys who are good enough to kind of scramble and make life difficult for everybody but Alex Caruso, who they dare to shoot threes, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll knock 8 of them down. Like, points are going to be so hard to come by, and the Thunder really have to get more out of AJ Mitchell and Chet Holmgren in particular.
But I will take this from the Thunder perspective, the same way I did when the Spurs lost game 1 to the T-Wolves, and say this: SGA was 7 of 22 shooting. Yep. You talk about the lack of productivity from some of the other guys. Caruso sort of covered up a lot of that and masked a lot of that with his 30-point effort. All of that being said, they still were right there at the end against the Thunder in a double against the Spurs in a double overtime game. And from that perspective, if you're Mark Dagnall, you got to feel good going into game 2.
You also learned some valuable lessons. And again, talking about coaches adjusting on the fly, Kenny Atkinson. Did you notice Mark Dagnall brought Caruso in 2 minutes into the game?
Yep.
Realized he cannot play Isaiah Hartenstein when Wemby's on the floor because he's a non-shooter, and that lets Wemby sit there. And so Hartenstein won't start game 2, I'm sure. He learned he's got to have shooters, and shooters knocking down shots. And the advantage they have with their depth going 10, 11 deep is, man, all right, let's get Isaiah Joe out there. Maybe he can hit some shots. And you have got to spread the floor on this team and make them cover a lot of ground, because that is a young, physical, athletic, defensive team for the Spurs. We're going to contest shots. Somebody's got to knock them down.
Give me a thought on sort of, something you had texted me when I was texting back and forth with you while I was watching that game. the other night about Wemby. And the fact that we're still talking about a guy that at 22 hasn't even maxed out on his potential. And what that means, what he could be historically in this sport, Kurt.
Yeah, if you watch him out there, especially in the regular season, he's still experimenting. He's still trying stuff like, hey, can I do this? Can this work? He's and is incredibly dedicated in the offseason. And I think what's most important for him, already at 22, incredibly dedicated.
Cerebral. He's cerebral.
He is, but he's also incredibly dedicated to his physical conditioning because he realizes tall guys don't last as long in general as younger guys, and he's not the thickest guy that's ever lived. So he's a little there's the risk of injury, but he has done such an amazing job taking care of his body at a young age to put him in that position. I don't know that he'll have the longevity to get in the GOAT conversation, but will he be the greatest center of all time and maybe be in that conversation? Yeah.
Could be Jim Brown. He could be basketball's version of Jim Brown.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? He could wind up being that sort of guy. The Jason Kidd stuff, I was shocked. And then the more you start to read, you're talking mutual parting of the ways, the more you start to dig into this story. Is it as shocking as it looked on the surface?
No.
Because of all the money they owe. My 4 years and $30 million they still owe him or something like that.
Yeah, and the owner gave him that. Remember last year, the Knicks called him and said, hey, we'd like to talk to Kidd. And they're like, not only are we not talking to Kidd, we're extending him. So they're paying him that money. This is the credit to the ownership there that they gave Masai Ujiri. They cleaned out a bunch of scouting staff, a bunch of the front office, analytics, cleaned house. And a lot of this was the Nico guys, the Doncic guys. You've got to look, with all due respect, they know they got to move on from that era. It's now the Cooper Flagg era. He cleaned house to put in guys who are going to be looking to the future. And Kidd was part of that. Kidd was, although he has kind of denied it, multiple reports said he was in on the Doncic trade before it happened. And it was just time. I think they felt, look, if we're going to redo this around Cooper, we're doing it top to bottom. We're cleaning house. And that starts in the front office, and then you'll eventually see it filter through to the roster.
All right, what does that mean long-term here? Is Jason Kidd taking a year off? Is there a job that opens up out there based on what happens in this postseason?
He is very ambitious and wants to be in the front office. He talked to Dumont about moving into, ideally, Ujiri's role, but somewhere in the front office before, and was told, no, you're going to coach. We hired you to coach. That was true in Brooklyn. That was true in Milwaukee. He has done that at every stop. So I wonder if that's what he's now looking for. And I wonder if he can get in because, again, he is a strong personality. I don't know if he's going to get that chance, but that seems more where he wants to be. He's got enough money. That said, if he wants to get back on the bench, he'll have his choice of jobs.
Okay.
And by the way, if I'm the Orlando Magic right now, I'm getting the Billy Donovan thing done in the next 24 hours before he decides, hey, what he left Chicago of his own volition. They wanted to keep him.
Right.
He wanted to go somewhere where he could start competing for games that mattered. Orlando provides that. Dallas provides that with Cooper Flagg with a long runway. And they're going to hire a really good coach in Dallas. And if I were set on a guy I wanted, I would lock him up right now. And somewhere Taylor Jenkins is kicking himself.
Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. That's his jam. Always appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for coming on. Wednesdays on SportsWrap means the NBA Weekly, and it means SportsWrap goes inside baseball with this guy. Former big league reliever and closer, our everything man, MLB analyst, David Aardsma, hangs out with us on Wednesdays. I was just, while I was flying home last night, in the middle of the night, because JetBlue had a 3-hour delay on the flight. And by the way, I love the people on JetBlue, like the pilots and the staff and the attendants are just great. And this is not a commercial for them. I get nothing from them. I just love JetBlue. Have always loved their service. Other people may have different experiences. I am a JetBlue guy through and through. So kudos to AJ who got me into a an aisle all by myself, an exit row, and I was just able to stretch out, get on the laptop, and do some work. So as I was doing this, David, I started going through pitching numbers because I said, I got to do my prep now since I got Aardsma on tomorrow. And I said, I got to go through some pitching stuff. I cannot recall a time with this much of a sampling this early in the season that we have seen pitching numbers like we are seeing up and down all across baseball. Usually pitchers might start out hot and then hitters catch up, or vice versa. Pitching is just dominating the story for me. Yeah, we could talk about Kyle Schwarber and all that stuff, but I've got, Chris Sale. We don't even talk about Chris Sale. The Miz, Chase Burns, Christopher Sanchez, Davis.
Is that what we're going with? Is that the nickname, The Miz?
That's what a lot of people are saying. Ryan Glasspiegel from front office last night was saying he was going to watch The Miz. He was sitting behind home plate to watch The Miz, and I didn't think he meant the wrestler. So Davis Martin, Nick Martinez, Cam Schlittler, all these guys with sub-2 ERAs. At this stage of the season, what do you contribute this to?
Well, there's 7 starters with ERAs below 2 at this point, which is insane, and none of them are named Paul Skeens. That's right. When you look at Paul Skeens and you go down the line and he's 17th in ERA, yeah, there's something going on, and he's absolutely dealing. It's just the continual evolution of pitching. And the understanding, a lot of hitters, and I went on record and said this, a lot of hitters think ABS are going to go in their direction. No, brother. Nope.
So you do contribute some of this to ABS?
I think what it is a hitter's completely misunderstanding of how good umpires actually are, because they complain and they think they get away with things. The umpires are actually calling it in the hitter's favor. And now when you move to the ABS, and the hitters don't have that advantage, they don't get to whine and moan and get an umpire to change calls over time. The pitchers always had the advantage when you do that. The smaller you get the zone, the better the pitcher actually gets, because they get to work within the margins, and they've never had to say anything. And so we're getting those calls where the hitters think the zone got smaller. No, the zone just got correct.
Michael King is flourishing. I always thought he had the potential to be a good starter, even when he was with the Yankees, had some injury issues. Yeah. Let me start at the top, though, with Cam Schlittler here. I mean, would you be shocked at all if we got to the end of the year and he was the Cy Young Award winner in the American League? Is he that good?
He's that good. But we also saw that, too. So this isn't a flash in the pan. This isn't like all of a sudden he's a guy out of nowhere. He had a sub-3 last year, and he was good. I get it. It was only 73 innings, but now you're seeing the same pitcher. You're seeing somebody who's going out there and doing the same type of thing. So, no, it is not going to surprise me.
It's been remarkable. And we all knew Chase Burns had this potential, in Cincinnati. Go look at the AL Central. the NL Central with Mizorowski, Chase Burns. We can go, obviously Paul Skeens that you could go through. The NL Central's got a lot of these guys. And again, we're not even talking about Skeens, who you mentioned at 2.62. Parker Messick, who almost threw the no-hitter. He's at 2.45. Do you think, though, as the weather warms, we get into the warmer months of summer, do you think that eventually there is some regression to the mean here?
Without a doubt. And there always is. There's always a slight regression. That's where you see pitchers like a Mizorowski or a pitcher, again, we're still guessing on Mizorowski. It's really still so young on his career. But a guy like Paul Skeens or Chris Sale, where they know how to pitch through those hot summer months, the grind of pitching every single outing and going out there, facing hitters who are now adjusting to them. And that's the thing, is there's a lot of guys on this list that are still somewhat new to a list like this, and so we'll see how the hitters adjust over time. But it's not surprising with how pitching has evolved and how it's changed that there are so many guys on this list.
Is this an endorsement of the idea of velocity? When you look up and down this list and look at the pitchers on it, is this an endorsement of harder, and harder, is the way to go, and teaching velocity and all of that is the way to go? Or is there something you can point to in this list that says, not so fast, Lee Harvey?
Stuff. I would say this is stuff, and velocity is one factor in those type of things. It's late movement, command of the zone with late movement, essentially. And so whether that's one pitch, 5 pitches, that's what this is an endorsement of. Velocity is a huge part to do with that, but we've always had velocity. I came up in the minor leagues. We had guys throwing 102. They just couldn't, they didn't have stuff. They couldn't throw strikes with it. So this whole list is basically of guys that have elite stuff, which means they can move the ball around, throw it hard where they want to, when they want to. That's always been the game.
All right. David Aardsma was going to hang with us for one more segment. I think sometimes we throw out these ideas of 60 and 70 home runs a little too haphazardly. The latest example is next. David Aardsma hangs out with us every Wednesday on Sports Wrap as we go inside baseball. Kyle Schwarber. Oh, he's going to hit 60. Oh, he's going to hit 70. I always say, of all the things that I think sometimes we just throw out too haphazardly and don't give enough respect to how difficult it is to do, this is always the one for me. Somebody used to have a saying, like, don't even talk to me until after the All-Star game when it comes to these sorts of things. Because we've seen guys get hot and go through some of these stretches, and there's going to be stretches where you go cold, especially we were just talking about all the great pitching there is in baseball. That being said, the comeback of the Phillies under Don Mattingly, with Kyle Schwarber obviously helping to lead the way, Bryce Harper helping out as well, much to the chagrin probably of one Sam Yarnell, who can't stand Bryce Harper and does everything he can to wreck on him any chance he gets. I
don't get it.
Well, it's the Nationals thing. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this idea of Schwarber and sort of what he's done here through the first, 50 games of the season.
Well, he's absolutely killing it. I mean, you have to love it. And you know what? This is a player that has built a career at being that home run guy. So if we want to say someone that's capable of hitting 50 and 60, without a doubt, Kyle Schwarber. 70, I don't know. I don't know if it's there, but I wouldn't doubt it. It's not like he hasn't hit 50s. You know, he hit 56 last year. You know, hit 47, 46. So this is a guy that has shown the propensity to be in this type of range. Like, nobody can hit 60 until they hit 60. Until, you know, Aaron Judge was never going to be able to do it. And then he did it. Now we're like, okay, what's the next ceiling for him? You know, and you're talking about Ohtani, he's in that range. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be happening this year. Murakami, the difference with that is still have no idea, and the pitchers haven't adjusted yet. So do I think he's going to fall off? Yes.
Okay. The Padres.
Yes.
Can they hang all year with the Dodgers, or does eventually all this talent in LA, the injury bugs and things like that sort of go by the wayside? By the time we get to August, are we still talking about this being a Dodgers division with the Padres as a wild card team, or can San Diego actually run this thing through the end of the season?
There's no reason that San Diego can't run this thing through the season. It's going to be on them. You know, so I'll put it that way. It's going to be on them. The Dodgers, a couple things we know about the Dodgers: incredibly talented, and they have a lot of players that are right now a little bit more injury prone. Especially, they've had a lot of pitching injuries. They had a lot of pitching injuries last year, the year before that. Their lineup isn't necessarily getting a lot younger. The core four, their lineup is not getting a lot younger. So they have opportunities there from an injury standpoint to fall off. But the real focus to me isn't the Dodgers and what the Dodgers are capable of. Maybe the Dodgers win the division. But this is the Padres team that at the end of the season will be statistically right there with the top couple teams in the National League and all of Major League Baseball, to where you have to consider them a legit World Series contender. And I don't know if I want to face a team like this in a 7-game series. And I don't know if I want to face anybody with Mason Miller or Jason Adams on the back of that.
Their ability to shorten games is insane. It really is.
And it's unlike some other teams, unlike a lot of teams. And I've always said this, been told this from the first get-go of Major League Baseball I played in. Teams that win the World Series tend to have the best bullpens. It's just it's how it works. You shorten games get over. You win playoff games. You win playoff games with the bullpen. And right now, they have the best bullpen.
At what point will the White Sox in that AL Central start to become something you can believe in as more than just an early feel-good story?
October 1st.
Even in that division? Even in that crappy division?
Even in that division. And we do know, one thing we know about the division, they do tend to come together. One team tends to come together at the end.
Yeah.
But you have to give it to me a lot more. To be honest, it's going to be after the All-Star break. Let's see where the team is at the All-Star break, and let's see what type of moves they make at the trade deadline. If they don't make moves, they're going to end up falling off, just like everybody does. If they do decide to make a couple smart moves, then we'll see. But they're still not going to make waves in the playoffs.
The run differential stuff is kind of crazy when you look around the AL and even in that AL Central. What will you be looking for out of Gerrit Cole early on as he gets ready to return for the Yankees on Friday?
I want to see if he's overthrowing. That's going to be the big one. He's going to come out probably just overthrowing, some energy, some juice coming back and wanting to get after it. I want to see him to be able to calm that down, control the early strike zone. And then the big one for me is, how does that 2-strike pitches look? Are they sharp? Are they out of the zone? Are they in the zone, out of the zone? Or is it one of those things where they get out of the zone really quick when that's where you get guys to take? That tends to tell where a pitcher is at after Tommy John, after arm injuries, is can they command early in the zone and then late in the count? Is it a strike and then out of the zone? A lot of times guys will overthrow on those off-speed pitches trying to strike guys out, and they're really obvious and hitters see it really early. I want to see late action on his pitches that gets swing and misses.
Do you baby him if you're the Yankees as far as pitch counts and all of that?
Absolutely. It's not like he's 22 years old and he's fresh and all this stuff. Let the man come back. Let him give him time. The Yankees are a very good team this year, and you've got stacked pitching. Build him up, take your time, and then let Gerrit Cole be the competitor that he is in his heart around July, August, September, so you're ready for him in the playoffs.
I only have 10 seconds. Do you go 6-man rotation? Do you think about it?
I absolutely think about it. They've got too many names, too many guys, but to be honest, I don't want to think about it too long. Get 5 and then figure out somebody in the bullpen.
All right. David Aardsma does a great job. Always appreciate him as Sports Wrap goes inside baseball. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. But before we do, a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. Available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast. You can listen to this show, crystal clear audio, Monday through Friday. I don't know what you're waiting for, but subscribe today. 45 minutes, mostly commercial free. It's good to listen to on the treadmill. You got to get that 45-minute workout in. We're perfect for that. Go and subscribe today. We've also got the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place to find all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show available on our YouTube channel. Right there, commercial-free, early every afternoon. Go and subscribe to the channel. Extended conversations, extended clips, the NBA Weekly, the Sports Wrap Inside Baseball conversation that we just had with David Aardsma. You can just go and get those directly right on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Sports Wrap Shorts also available there. These are 1 to 3 minute long videos, news breaks. Even if I'm sitting in an airport at JFK waiting for my flight that's 3 hours late. No, I'm still going to give you a Sports Wrap short covering the Jason Kidd news with him getting let go, or parting of ways, if you will. with the Dallas Mavericks. We had that covered last night. The top games, we cover those too. Sports Wrap shorts available on our YouTube channel. Also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page. Also on our Instagram, the same name, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And now, without any further delay, on this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Rashee Rice. The end of freedom for him for about 30 days. He's going to get 30 days in jail for violating his probation or parole or whatever it may be. He got busted for using the wacky weed. And look, man, there is enough of a pattern of behavior here when it comes to Rashee Rice that if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you can't count on having him on the field. I know he just had surgery on his knee, so he wasn't expected to be ready for some of these off-season workouts that are going on. But if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, at what point is enough enough? At what point are you starting to think, all right, we've got to have contingency plans for the fact that he's not here? Or just cut him loose altogether. NFL teams are loath for distractions. They are very loathsome towards distractions. And Rashee Rice is right now a constant distraction for this organization. Remember the whole speeding thing, racing the car. He didn't even have to go to jail for that. And a lot of us would. And to still screw it up and find yourself in jail for 30 days. Hopefully this is a wake-up call for him. I tell this story once in a blue moon. I spent 10 hours in jail once. I didn't do anything bad. It was a misunderstanding, a traffic violation, a bench warrant was issued for me. I had no idea it had been out there for 10 years. I wound up in jail for 10 hours. Let me tell you, that 10 hours in jail was enough to scare me straight that I don't ever want to be in jail for anything ever in my life. 10 hours was enough to tell me that. Hopefully 30 days in the Who's Cow for Rashee Rice will do the same. I have a feeling it's not going to be hard time. Odds and ends, Brian Flores. The lawsuit that he has had against the NFL. Now, you've sat here and we've all wondered, would somebody give him another chance? Especially with the lawsuit against the NFL. Well, we may have a better indication as to why none of these teams are being so welcoming and embracing of Brian Flores, former Dolphins head coach. He has 25 NFL teams that were served subpoenas in the middle of this lawsuit that he has against the NFL. Now, we don't know which NFL teams they are, but the NFL, the Broncos, the Giants, and Texans are the defendants currently battling Flores. And you've got to imagine, out of those 25 teams, there's probably not a lot of owners of those teams that are all that excited about the idea of bringing in Brian Flores for a head coaching interview, given the fact that he has taken on the league in such a vociferous manner, we'll just say. Hopefully, he gets another opportunity in the league. I am dubious. Western Conference Finals, NHL, Vegas and Colorado will get it going tonight. And look, go and look at it by the points and by the standings and all this. It should be an Avalanche rout, right? Avalanche minus 255 to win the series. Golden Knights at plus 205. I'll tell you, there's something special going on with John Tortorella and that Golden Knights team, though. And I think you could throw all the statistics and all the points and the regular season stuff. I think you could throw it all out the window. Get a hot goalie for a couple of games, a fluky bouncing puck somewhere. Golden Knights have to believe they belong here at this point. They've run the gauntlet since firing Bruce Cassidy, who, by the way, I guess isn't being allowed to search for his next head coaching gig. It's a bad job by the Golden Knights on that front, but they got him under contract. They can do that. We got to go. It's going to wrap it up for this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll see you back here on Thursday for an all-new edition of Sports Wrap. Bye-bye.